This is an emergency broadcast alert giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rekam and whom we are in great debt. Double honors to the apostles of great millstone who rule well, continue doing so, standing firm in the eyes of terror. To the elders, the bishops, Akim and Aquab, salutations and blessings to the house of David. We are the hopeful elect. This is your brother Quasiar with a video that Apostle Ryan Rapp made 4 years ago. Now, I had to come back to this video because when the Lord put something in your head, it was ringing all day today. And I'm like, I got to get this before I go to sleep because I ain't going to be able to go to sleep. And if I did, I'm going to feel so awful. Anyway, why? Because the earthquakes, the wars, the rumors of wars, the poisoning of the air and the food, the water, if that is not trying to get rid of, I'm not going to even give it away, but I am going to let my elder apostle break it down for you. Again, you're going to hear it today. A video that he played or he did because he actually went there and he did a class. I don't know what I was trying to look for that one, but anyway, nevertheless, this was done 4 years ago, and look what's happening now.
Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is What's Going On? And pretty much, you brothers and few sisters out there that have been watching, you've been hearing the news of all these different things going on. And I know you heard the latest about the Georgia Guidestones and how, they pretty much said that it was an explosion that blew up the stone. But if it was an explosion, then it would have, I would have thought that it would have knocked all of them down, if it was an explosion. There's a video out that the up and coming elder Amawan Gabar sent me, dealing with this one individual that showed footage of the destruction, and he showed that it was actually a lightning strike that broke this down, which does make sense because if you look at the stone on top here, you notice that there's a piece broken off from down here. So it could have been, a lightning strike, or the lightning strike could have struck down somewhere else, because you didn't really see the lightning strike. Well, what you did see was there's a light. I'm not sure exactly where it's positioned, and he said that if it would have been an explosion, it wouldn't have made the light go bright, and the light went bright for a couple of seconds, real quick, and then it went out. So that's a possibility. Irregardless, today the crews rolled around. It was a day later. The crews rolled around and pretty much demolished the rest of the stones, which I read one of the comments, and what they said was that it didn't make sense for them to actually demolish the rest of the stones, when it's still under investigation. So why are they demolishing the rest of the stones when it's still under investigation? It's kind of fishy. So we don't know what's really going on exactly, but we know that something, the Lord is causing something to happen, and we're just keeping our eye out on it.
So like, yeah, plain and simple. I didn't know I couldn't put it together back then, but I can see it. I can see it today because lightning struck it. That's Yahweh Hashem Yahushai saying your witchcraft ain't going nowhere. Your witchcraft is not going to take you anywhere. You're done for. It's over for you.
Just trying to show you here, in this one, trying to show you here. There's our articles on this. If you look it up, if you see that right there, that's a tractor, and then they knocked the rest of them down. So we don't know what's really going on exactly, but what the conclusion I came up to in the spirit was that this whole monument thing, the so-called American Stonehenge, had its time, and now that time is past. Now, when you look at the time when when the guidestones were established, they were established back in right here, history. In June 1979, a man using the pseudonym Robert C. Christian approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company on behalf of a small group of loyal Americans and commissioned the structure. Christian explained that the stones would function as a compass, calendar, and clock. See, so the compass, calendar, and clock, meaning a time period. Now here it is. We're in July of 2022, the year of the turnip, by the way. And all of a sudden, a day after they were messing with the CERN thing and the so-called portals, all of a sudden now today, the Georgia Guidestones. Well, actually, I believe yesterday morning or early this morning, they were, one of them was destroyed, and then the very next day they came out and leveled the rest of them. So it says, and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events. Yeah, right. Now, in June 1975, that's when he approached these people, and I believe, let's see, it was in, they were erected in 1980, but he asked for them to be erected in June of 1979. Now, if you add up June 1979 all the way up until today, you have exactly 43 years, and 4 and 3 is 7, which means completion, and, that is the complete amount of time, that, I mean, everything is controlled by Yahweh by Shemal Shai, but that is the completion amount of time that maybe they had it at that point, and maybe that's why they brought them down. I mean, they're still developing. They said they saw a car driving away, at the scene, but they don't know anything yet. You know how Esau does. But I found that pretty interesting that, it was 1979 when he approached this granite company, and today being July 2022 is exactly 43 years later, which 4 and 3 is 7. Now, there was another thing that had the 4 and 3 that I was looking at, but I can't remember exactly what it was, so if it comes back, I'll bring it out. But I found that to be pretty interesting. All right, now the Elder Yashawamba put up this video, to through and info, on this, this channel, which is called Spoken Into Existence, the to through and info. And pretty much he played a clip of us at the camp, where I was speaking about, if the Georgia Guidestones, they don't know who erected them, why doesn't someone from the government come and take it down? And then all of a sudden, boom, this happens, and it's funny because back in 2017, I went with the Atlanta camp, and we went out there and we actually did a lesson out there, with the brothers, in front of the monument. We read it, we read about it. It was about 44 minutes and some change long. Let me see. It was actually 44 minutes and 38 seconds long. you know, and we spoke about it, you know, the demonic influence of it and all of that, you know. And then when you watch this video, you know, I mentioned that at camp, and then all of a sudden now this happens, you know. Now, you know, that's, you know, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Now, the reason why this is important is because this is a major monument for Esau's so-called New World Order agenda, you know, and it was set up as a calendar, as we read, a compass, a calendar, and a clock. And I even forgot about it. There's a slit right here in the middle stone. Let's see if I can open this one up. There's a slit right there in the middle stone. As you can see right here in the middle stone, there's a slit, and that slit would be for the summer and winter solstice, you know, and it would cast a light through there. I forget exactly the whole breakdown of it. It would cast a light through there through the summer and winter solstice, and it will hit somewhere. And then up here, if you look up in this corner here, you know, I had mentioned that this was dealing with the North Star, because everything Esau does is done by way of witchcraft, you know. And here this looks like Greek writing, you know, and then you have here, this is Spanish. This is I'm not sure what language this is. I know there was a Swahili, you know, there's an English one, I believe there's a Hebrew one, you know. And now this is gone, because the very first commandment is to maintain humanity under 500 million people. At present, there's almost 8 million people on the earth. So that means that they want to get rid of 7.5 billion people off the planet Earth, you know, to so-called have a manageable size. One scripture that came to mind is 2 Ezra 9:1. He said, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that this is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And the Lord is visiting this world because of the wicked inventions that these devils are pushing upon the planet. Matter of fact, let me get that one. Let me pull that up. Right, this is 2 Ezra 13. Let's go to 2 Ezra 13:37. But let me leave that because I want to get back to that. 2 Ezra 13 and 37. Helps if you hit go. It says, and this my son shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest. Right, and this is what they've done. And there's other scriptures that speak about their inventions, because the Lord said that in these times knowledge will increase, and we see knowledge increasing exponentially, you know, so much so that they're talking about the six gato, you know. The word gato is, you know, Spanish for cat. You know, you delete the rest of it and you keep the first letter, you know, with the numero seis, which is 6. And then they're saying that with that technology, the actual smartphone would be inside of, you know, peepers. You know, they'll be inside of peepers. You know, and this is what they want. You know, they want to be able to control it. And when you watch, I watched Black Mirror last night again. I watched the second episode of season 3, and pretty much, I forgot the name of it, Play Something. And pretty much the dude, they pretty much inserted something into the back of his neck, you know, with this thing over his head. And pretty much it was a virtual world where they were controlling his mind, his fears and everything, you know, and they ended up jacking him up, you know, pretty much. So this is what they want. They want total control of your body and soul. So going back here, matter of fact, let me see, is there any more? Whoa. It says, and this is why in James 5, it says, how ye rich men, for your miseries that shall come upon you. Because it says here, After the Lord, you know, rebukes them for their wicked inventions,
Salaki, for the small interruption.
pretty much destroys their world, he says, and shall lay before them their evil thoughts and their the torments wherewith they shall begin to be tormented. See, which are like unto a flame, and he shall destroy them without labor by the law which is like unto me. So I thought the law was going to be done away with, or the law is done away with. So pretty much, you know, the Lord is visiting these devils with these signs, you know, with these calamities, pestilences, and he's given these devils the ability to create these things, to push them forward, to move his agenda forward. And then back in 2 Ezra 2 and 3, the Lord, the second verse says the Lord is going to begin to visit the world which he made. That's why it says to keep an eye on the prophecies, pretty much. You know, measured out a time diligently in itself, as it says in the first verse. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and you see that happening, you know, and like the brother Amawanga Bar mentioned in his lesson, all these things are happening, you know, one after the other. You know, I mean, all of a sudden, now that we're in July, the turn up got turned up even more. You know, now the according to the reports, you know, the English government is falling apart, which the brother Yashalam has sent me that video earlier, you know, and they're pretty much falling apart. You know, they're in chaos and shambles. New York NYPD, there's a whole lot of police officers that are resigning and also retiring. It's hard for them to get recruits, and the detectives and police are tired of going to the neighborhoods where they're not welcomed. You know, they go there, even if they're going there to do their job to help somebody out, they're being pretty much dismissed. They're being pretty much, you know, hassled, looked down upon. You know, you're not welcome. So they're getting tired of that. You know, so a lot of them are making their exit. So you got a lot of veteran police officers and detectives in New York and in the NYPD that are leaving the force, which that's going to cause more problems, because there's a shortage as it is already, and that's going to put more strain and pressure on the rest of the police that are there. So don't be surprised if you start hearing about a lot of police suicides, you know, because of being overworked and because of the constant pressure that's coming, you know, upon them. It says, for like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest, even so the times also of the highest have plain beginnings in wonder and powerful works, and ending in effects and signs. See? So everything the Lord has, you know, it's his beginning of empires and ending of empires. You know, it also has wonders and powerful works, and ending in effects and signs. And that's why we see the signs coming to pass as we speak. And that's why it's important to watch for the prophecies, because the prophecies are the most important thing right now to watch for, because this is what's ushering in Yahweh's kingdom. It's speaking loud and clear, but only the elect are going to be able to see it. It says, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby you have believed shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. All right. So this is what's going on, you know, and this is why it's good to keep an eye on these things, because this is something major that just took place. You know, whether they did it themselves or whether it's an act, you know, of the Most High, either way, it's still an act of the Most High. You know. And this thing right here is demolished as of right now. It's not even there. I mean, I'm pretty sure they got rid of all of it. Just like when, you know, the 911 thing happened, you know, they quickly got rid of all of the evidence. Why? You know? Let me see something. Just bear with me real quick. Just bear with me real quick. I'm just want to try to see if they show the area after it was totally demolished. Let me see. Let me visit here. Let me see what they got here. Nah, this is just I'm trying to see if they show a picture. Oh, here we go. This looks like the one. Where you at? Ah, yes sir, yes sir. All right, check this out. So this is the ending of an era, man. You know, you have here the Georgia Guidestones demolished after explosion destroyed portion. GBI says. Now, when you scroll through here, they give you videos. This is the actual video of the thing that happened, and this light right here flashed really bright when the so-called explosion happened. This is the video of the car that was seen leaving the scene. These are more videos. And when we scroll down here, what do we have? Voila. The crew came in and demolished the rest of it. So why would you do something like that? Like somebody put in a comment, they said, why would you do something like that on an ongoing investigation? You know? I thought the purpose of a crime scene was to search the crime scene for clues to figure out who did it before you go on and do this. You know, so something's fishy's going on, you know. Something very fishy's going on. All right, so, you know, I'm going to pull up a precept that a brother had posted up a little while ago. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, just wanted to bring that back to where it belonged. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 2, and we can close out on this. In verse 11, it says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." And these are all part of their devices. You know, the Lord is frustrating their enterprise, and that's why eventually these devils are gonna get physical. You know, not like Olivia Newton-John. Let's get physical. They're gonna start getting physical. Revelation 12:12. "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea." Why? Because this is going to be a worldwide event. Worldwide. "For the devil, which is Esau, is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." And that's why they're pushing so hard. See, ever since 2020 came into play, especially from March on, about middle of March on, towards the end of March, they've been pushing this agenda hard and heavy, man. The agenda is being pushed harder than the printing presses in America, you know, at the Fed. That's how hard they're pushing these things to go through. But it's all the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai pushing them forward to fulfill these prophecies, because the Lord can't make a move until all of the prophecies in the scriptures are fulfilled for this time period. All right, let's see what else we got. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, you know, this is what they look like. They were created, or they were actually starting to put into motion or into works in June 1979. From this period to now, it's been 43 years. But even if you go with the 1980, you know, even if you go with the 1980 date, it's 42 years. 42 is 6. So either way you slice it, you know, either 6 for the number of the devil, or 4 or 7 for the number of completion. You know, that's heavy, man. We just speaking about this, man. And look at this, what they look like now, because the crew came in and demolished the rest of it. So what happened to the investigation? What happened to all the, you know, looking for clues, footprints? How come they got this surveillance camera? How come this surveillance camera didn't catch anybody so-called setting this up? So there's a lot of theories and a lot of things that can be brought up, questions that can be brought up, but like the scripture said, we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. All right, so with that, I pray that your brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.